What's good people? Before we get started, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do because I do believe in praying in silence, but I'm going to say a very, very, very quick prayer before we get started. Jesus, use me, use the lessons that you taught me to help those who you send this way to hear this message, not for my glory, not for theirs, but for yours. Amen. So I've been on this constant journey. And I honestly think this is the perfect way to end the Jacob and Us series with episode 5, talking about God's grace being sufficient. I just didn't really think that I knew it would apply to me somehow. I just didn't understand how deep it would apply to me. As we've discussed episodes 1 through 4, we've talked about who Jacob was. We talked about Jacob being still. We talked about the mask that Jacob had to remove. And we talked about Jacob doing a new thing, becoming a new person, a new creature, a new name. And even by that, God gave him a new name. He changed his name from Jacob to Israel, or however you want to say it. Earlier this year, maybe even the beginning of last year, it's really earlier this year, I decided to go by a pseudonym myself, Michael Wells Israel. I went by Michael Wells Israel because of a book that I want to write, to where I wanted to remain completely anonymous. That was before I read up on Jacob. And point being is that the reason why I haven't posted recently is because I've been going through my own challenge of removing masks. Hence the reason why I did not start this episode saying, good people, what's going on? I'm your host, Michael Wells Israel. I felt like I got a major conviction in my spirit about that. And the question that I get God finally dropped in my heart, that made sense about everything, is he asked, how can you talk about removing masks when all you do is try to put one on every time things change in your life or you come across a new revelation, a newfound identity? I added newfound identity, and I added newfound identity specifically because I do not feel like the same person I was 2 years ago, before I moved to Atlanta for a job. I do not feel like the same person I was 1 year ago. I'm not the same person I was at the beginning of the year or even 3 months ago. There's been so much spiritual growth and so much appreciation, and God has just moved so much in my life on the inside. People can't even really see it on the outside, but God has done so much in my life on the inside, so much healing from things I didn't even know I needed healing from, to where I felt like I did have a newfound identity. So for the past few days, it's been really hitting me about using that name. I had to get into deep thought about it, meditate on it, really dig deep spiritually about it, and getting God's revelation on that. And it's all about transparency. The name Michael Wells Israel would have given me something to live up to. Just like before Michael Wells Israel, I went by Conker Jones. Before that, I went by Prodigal. Before that, I went by like Gemini. Some other names that I've gone by, let other people call me. And God brought something to my remembrance when I said I would no longer go by Conker Jones. Who I am is greater than anything I could ever create. Being full and wholeheartedly Charles Williams Comer is greater than any pseudonym, alias, identity, greater than any mask I could ever put on. Not only the mask that I put on, but the mask that the world told me to put on. How I'm supposed to act growing up where I grew up at. What joy really truly feels like. What my color says about who I am. And I'm saying this for Caucasians too, because just me being 100% myself, I'm not fond of how racism is being reversed. And it's not everybody. It's not all on either side that are racist. And this is what I hate so much about society, is that we're judging everyone based off of a few, and it could be quite a few. But not all of us are looking at it like that. I can't stand the racism, but I can't stand reversing it just the same. So I mean identities like that. I mean digging deep and understanding that you have to play a certain role as a man or as a woman, that you have to be built a certain way, not physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I truly believe now that when Jacob was wrestling with the angel, he had to make some serious life-altering choices in order for him to continue to become a new thing. Some of the same things that we as men going through, if it's a woman listening to this, thank you. But this one right here especially is mainly for the men. Some of the same things that we as men go through when you step outside of race and you focus on just gender. I am not by any means necessary saying that women do not have it bad. Women have it bad. But if you are a man, regardless if you feel like you're a good man or a piece of crap, if you are a man, you know there's one element to us that we carry that women don't. They do, but they don't have to. And that's being the provider and a protector, being the safe space at all times, being the one who has all the answers at all times, even when things are bad, even when things are going bad for us. We always have to have the answer. We always have to be the safe space. And sometimes we need a safe space. But God's grace is sufficient. With everything that I've been talking about, it has all been leading to my conviction on still trying to hide who I really am, who God really made me to be. Part of my new identity is no longer running from who I really am. Doing the things that I really have always wanted to do. Like for me, I can't wait till I actually get good enough to get on, play an actual, play a few rounds on a golf course, but I'm terrible. A couple of months ago, I started going back to the driving range. I go when I can afford it. I wish I could afford it every single day. That way I can get my swing down, but this was something that at 45, this is something that I did over 30 years ago and I loved it. But I've made excuses on doing it until now. And I know this is random. It's random, so forgive me. But it's context. Just doing some of the things that you really love doing, regardless who around you may say something's wrong with it, regardless on if they may call you feminine for doing it, or if you're feminine and you do it and they call you masculine, who cares? You're not going to be able to die and go to God and say, this is who I was because this is who everybody else told me to be, when every day we wake up and we have the opportunity to be who we truly are. But God's grace is sufficient. My battle has been with calling myself Michael Wells Israel. My battle has been with even the Obedience, Faith, and Discernment channel, along with the other channel that I'm going to have very active with. My battle's been with these things that I'm trying to use to identify myself. And I really hope this is helping someone, because this is the only way I can finish this series. I've been avoiding telling this since I was supposed to post this episode, because that's when it started. But I'm glad that I'm late on it now, because there would have been some key moments that I would have missed. And if you're still listening, to God be the glory. I think I'm a pretty interesting storyteller. But the reason why this episode had to be last is because I needed to get checked in my spirit. Now, to sum everything up on the reason why I'm saying this is because we have discussed what it takes as a man to fully submit to God. We have talked about having to be someone different and going through situations and battles to where you're facing these choices, to where you have to change who you are. You have to adjust your mindset and think differently. We've talked about and we've discussed this. Again, one of the hardest things to do as a man is to completely and totally submit to God, because it means losing that identity that we were born with by telling us we always have to be the provider, the protector. We always have to be the one with all of the answers. We're never going to have all of the answers. Where God's grace is sufficient, and as God understands that it's going to take us time. It's going to be a process. We're going to have to continue working on ourselves and improving ourselves to get to the point to where we really can let God move for us. God's grace is sufficient in understanding that I can wake up today and that I can say with all of my heart, I'm not going to do anything wrong. And then 10 minutes later, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. God's grace is sufficient enough for all of us like this. Let's look at what the verse actually says. And I just Googled this. Forgive me, I didn't pull out my Bible like I would normally do. I just Googled this. 2 Corinthians. Is it 2 Corinthians? 2 Corinthians 12:9. God tells Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Please take the time and study those things. Study that right there yourself. We love saying God's grace is sufficient. We love saying that. But the second part of these verses the second part of like what comes after these cliche quotes has all the meat. You know, we got the cliche quotes and that's the bread. But what comes after it, that's the meat. That's what actually fulfills you with what I'm learning with a lot of these cliche quotes these pastors have. But the second part is God saying, for my power is made perfect in weakness. This doesn't mean you have to display yourself as being weak to the world. But if you, again, like I said before, if you really want to study someone who was after God's own heart, it was David. You really want to study how to get God to look at you and say you're a child or man or being after his own heart. Study David. David was very transparent with God. David was very emotional with God. You're talking about the toughest person to ever walk the face of this earth. Killed a lion, killed a bear, slayed a giant, chopped off his head and held it up to what I can only assume is thousands of people, and was feared by all of them because he stepped out and did something truly off of giving it all to God. He was fully submissive. And this is my own speculation. If you agree, fine. If you don't, you don't. But my own speculation is that David had so much time in the wilderness that he was able to build that relationship with God. But here's something else that I'm going to add to this. When I talk about God's grace being sufficient, when I talk about God saying my power is made perfect in weakness, God is telling us in this, I can take care of everything that's bothering you. All you have to do is let me. I'm good at this, bruh. Give it to me. But how do we give it to him? Remember, I said David was very transparent and emotional with God. And one thing that always struck me about people, and I check myself on this all the time, so I'm not saying I'm out of the mix, but I try my best to acknowledge it, is the fact that I feel like I have to hide how I really feel about things from God. The fact that I go to God and say dumb stuff like, Lord, I'll wait as long as you want me to for me to get a wife when I want one yesterday. I'm not telling God lies like that anymore. Like, I want to be single for the rest of my life. No. I absolutely do not. I'm glad that I've been able to go through my isolation stage, but it's not good for man to be alone. But again, please forgive me. I'm just, it's for context, and I'm speaking differently on this than I would normally talk. I'm just a little bit more calm and loose right now, trying to get a little bit more transparent with you, like I really truly believe God wants me to do, because it's that mental state with men that people don't understand and that people don't get. It's always a mental battle, and it's always a mental challenge, even with ourselves. We fight and argue with our own minds more than we fight with anything else out there in the world. And the problem that we have, the reason why it causes so much issues, the reason why it causes so many issues, is the fact that we are having this fight and this battle with ourselves when all that we have to truly do is give it to God and let God's grace be sufficient. God knows absolutely everything that we are thinking about, and absolutely everything that we want to do, absolutely everything that we have done. And God knows when we go to him and say, Lord, I really love you, that sometimes we want to mean it, but we can't, because we don't have answers to certain questions that we're not asking God in the right way for. This is sitting up here saying that his strength is made perfect in our weakness, meaning we go to him like the babies that we really truly are compared to how long he's been around, meaning that we go to God and bear all, not be concerned about how God feels about us, but having that fear inside of us to say, I'd rather tell you the truth now than suffer from a lie later, even if it may not sound politically correct. God's grace is sufficient. He knows what we go through. He knows what you go through. He knows what I go through. He knows what our friends and family go through. So why is this so important as we sum up how all of us are walking around like Jacob? And it's because the arrogant part of me, my personal testimony, I hope that it helps. The arrogant part of me thought I was already done wrestling with God. I felt like I was on the other side of this series telling you how to get through it, when in reality, I've literally been walking through it myself. To God be the glory. And it has humbled me. One of the major things that we have to do in front of God is humble ourselves to know that he's got a plan. He knows we're not going to get the plan right away. But as long as we wake up every single day and we keep trying and we keep pushing, God's grace is sufficient. Stop holding on to your problems of yesterday, sir. Stop being so concerned about what you cannot control. As I've said before, the serenity prayer, again, people love quoting the beginning of it. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. People love quoting that. But the second part, what comes after it, is the real meat. And this is where you start understanding that God's grace is sufficient. Thank you for that, Holy Ghost. This is turning out to be pretty dope. This is where you start understanding that God's grace is sufficient. What does it say after that? Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. It doesn't mean that everything is always going to go wrong. All that means is that we're going to have some good times and we're going to have some bad times. But as long as we keep our faith in God, it will lead us to a place of peace. Next, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is and not as I would have it. I'm going to break it down to you like this, brother, man. Everybody on the face of this earth are in one or two positions in their life. You're in the position where you have this fantasy that you feel like you should have yourself and that people around you should be. You have this fantasy about who your friends should be, who your woman should be. If you're a woman, you have a fantasy about who your husband should be. You have all these fantasies about how our lives should be. And every time we keep looking towards that fantasy, instead of accepting the reality for what it really is, nothing changes. We don't grow. We stay in the same situation. That's what I love about that the most, because it says taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, and this key part right here, and not as I would have it. Taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, and not as I would have it. I have to say that one more time. Taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, and not as I would have it. You can't change anything going on around you but you. And until you realize you have to get it right with yourself first and let everything else fall where it may, you will never truly be able to truly help someone else out, because you're not looking at the world that we live in for exactly what it is. You're holding on to something that's not even real, and it's giving you a false sense of hope. Forgive me for saying it so direct like that. But it follows that with saying taking as Jesus did the sinful world as is and not as I would have it. I forgot the next one. The next one is understanding that all things will work together as long as I submit to your will. I change it up a little bit and say understanding that all things will work together as I continue submitting to your will, because it's a continuous process. You can look at it like something that you can submit to once and that's it. No, you have to wake up daily and submit to God's will wherever it may lead. Finishes off like this: so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you in eternity. Amen. What reasonably happy in this life means to me is carving out my own piece of joy, knowing that I'm walking and living in God's will as well, but also understanding that there will be bad moments. There will be things that are out of my control. Reasonably happy is being able to remain joyful in those bad moments that are out of your control. You do not control everything you go through, but you control how you go through it. And if I have to explain what supremely happy with God for eternity means, then this is not the channel that you should be listening to. I hope this didn't bore you. I hope it was a great end to the Jacob and Us series. I'm extremely grateful every time God takes me through something to where I can let other people know and just hopefully let them know that if God can pull me through it, God can pull you through it too. You're not alone. There's always someone else out there. As I will continue saying, because this is how I really look at life in its simplicity. Remember my 5 favorite things. Stay focused. Stay focused on God. Stay focused on constantly growing. Stay focused on constantly being a better person. Stay faithful. Stay faithful to God. If you're in a relationship, stay faithful to that relationship. Stay faithful to what really matters the most to you. Stay focused, stay faithful, stay true to yourself. Take the mask off that other people told you to put on and be who you truly are. Then you'll see how amazing God really is. Treat other people like you want to be treated. That's biblical. Everything that we read in the Bible that talks about other people, as Jesus has simplified it immensely, is treat other people how you want to be treated. And last, but would never be the least, is give God all the respect and glory. Because God is doing a whole lot more in your life than you can ever imagine. This entire episode right here has been about God doing something that I wasn't even paying attention to, but I'm extremely grateful that I went through it. So it's all in God's grace that I was able to go through it. Because God's grace is sufficient. And in my weakness, when I get ahead of myself, when I start thinking outside of the will of God, I try to rush what God does, His strength is there. Because what I am not able to do, because I submit to God's will daily, He'll pull me out of situations, keep me from making mistakes, going down the wrong road. Give God all the respect and glory that God deserves. Because God is doing a whole lot more in your life than you could ever imagine. I am Charles Comer. I will see you in August.